Let's compare the astrology predictions I made for yesterday to what actually happened. So for context, Wednesday I predicted that we would be processing out loud the major headlines of this week so far. So Thursday I predicted that whatever revelations, realizations came from that processing out loud, whatever decision on what comes next, would be hashed out Thursday, aka again yesterday. Specifically, I noted that we would be seeing some shady maneuvers from the top 1%, and we would also see, generally speaking, more attempts for restabilization. Yes, I was right in the most obvious sense, but also in some instances that were maybe not so obvious. Let's dive into it. With 89 votes, the Senate secured the passing of the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which, in case you didn't get from the name, is aimed at improving housing affordability. It is great that we're seeing at least some form of legal attempt to get the housing market to be more stable. One step is better than nothing, right now especially. And also in good news with the Senate, they failed to agree on DHS funding once again. This is the fourth time. And in typical debate fashion, each side is only becoming further strengthened in their conviction, so it doesn't look like there's going to be an agreement on this anytime soon. Speaking of the DHS shutdown, there's reports coming in that airports are rallying for donations because obviously a lot of TSA agents, etc., are not getting paid. So there's that restabilization through collectivist modalities instead of capitalistic individualistic modalities thing that I spoke about in my prediction for yesterday. Speaking of working towards restabilization, let's talk about the oil thing. Trump has made some very conflicting statements about the whole oil situation. In one hand, he tried to paint higher oil prices as a good thing, and in another hand, he said stopping evil empire is more important than oil prices. The U.S. Energy Secretary made a statement saying that the global oil trade is facing a major disruption. The Trump regime has started talking about easing up on sanctions on Russian oil to help stabilize this situation. Again, there's those themes of restabilization, but there's also the themes of shady maneuvers that I talked about. And there was a lot more shadiness yesterday. Trump was his idiota, shady self. He said it was inappropriate for Iran's team to join the World Cup. Wish we were not hosting that. Iran's supreme leader made his first public statement. I just got to read this. He said, "I assure everyone that we will not refrain from avenging the blood of your martyrs. The retaliation we have in mind is not limited only to the martyrdom of the great leader of the revolution. Rather, every member of the nation who is martyred by the enemy constitutes a separate case in the file of revenge." Like I said yesterday, everybody has been saying, Iran has been preparing for this moment for decades. They're not backing down anytime soon. They're not afraid of the Trump regime. They've been planning for this, which brings some shady restabilizing maneuvers from the Trump regime because they're panicking, because they're losing. We've already lost. They're throwing a temper tantrum and dragging us all into it. Switzerland closed the United States' Iranian embassy in their country because of the way the U.S. is acting. There's been more and more statements from different countries that have been building up over the last few weeks. This is not surprising, but it is something to note because we are seeing a global uncoupling with the U.S. and the way our country's acting, that's only going to worsen. There was a shooting at Old Dominion University that left one victim dead and 2 others wounded. The shooter was a former member of the Army National Guard and was previously convicted of attempting to aid ISIS, according to federal authorities. A driver in Michigan rammed their vehicle into a large synagogue in West Bloomfield Township, Michigan, and exchanged gunfire with a security guard. The driver was killed and the security guard was injured, both being intense, heated moments, an unfortunate reflection of following through on forethought and revelations with fiery passion. You know how yesterday we were talking about the false flag vibes of the FBI's statement about Iranian drones in California? And do you know how a lot of us who were alive during 9/11 were saying how similar the vibes are? There's a document in the Epstein files that suggests ISIS and Al-Qaeda are likely American and Israeli assets. Once again, things that you would get called a conspiracy theorist about getting confirmed thing of Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Yeah, it's just going to keep coming. This is just one of those examples. The shadiness is coming to light, you know? The last shady statement that I want to talk about is Sam Altman saying, "We see a future where intelligence is a utility, like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter." I think this tweet sums it up really well. Just want to say, but this is just, again, one of those moments where when people say that there's a huge anti-intellectualism movement right now and it's for a specific purpose, to make our minds slower because they don't want us to be smart, please listen and go read a book. Any book. Just read. Okay? Please. There are more and more reports talking about how Iran-linked hackers are going to take aim at the US specifically, and how there is a rising risk of cyber attacks, which is very much giving the Pluto in Aquarius meets everything in Aries, Saturn and Neptune in Aries. We have that war energy, but we have that new innovative technology coming into play with this war. My ending note for yesterday's prediction was that the planets are asking you to surrender instead of resist rebirth, because this rebirth is not slowing down anytime soon. Today, the planets are going to push you even further on that. If you're not surrendering to this rebirth, the planets are going to push you until you do, especially today. There's an opposition today between the moon in Capricorn and Cancer in Jupiter, which very recently went direct, which means that whatever inner growth that came from Jupiter being in retrograde in Cancer is now being expanded outward. And that energy is opposing the Capricorn moon. And that energy is opposing the moon in Capricorn, being ruled by Saturn, Saturn being in charge of authority, structure. On the shadow side of Capricorn, there can be a lot of rigidity and ambitious coldness, which is very obviously being exemplified by the US and the top 1%. So there's that opposition between rigid coldness and nurturing, watery expansion. And also the Capricorn moon is squaring Aries Chiron. Chiron, of course, the wounded healer. In Aries, a sign of individuality, is very much bringing our individualism, survival wounds to the forefront. But also with the moon in Capricorn sextiling Sun in Pisces, there is going to be an air of confidence, no matter what you believe in. There's been a massive student walkout movement that's been growing, so I expect today to be no different. Also, there's been more and more protests, strikes, and collective action. I expect this weekend, including today, will be no different. If some trigger wounds come up for you today, lean into the vast waters of Pisces and Cancer. Don't get overwhelmed by the ocean. Just breathe and try to float. Take your time, okay? The fire of Aries is great, especially for the radical energy that we need to be bringing into all of our lives right now. But Aries can be very impulsive, so remember to think before you act so that you can go the right direction, okay? Here is my shadow work prompt and mantra of the day. If you would like to answer the shadow work prompt in the comments section, or talk about anything that I mentioned in this video in the comment section down below, please do. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to chat with you. If you want to dive deeper into this, I have this week's full astrology breakdown on my blog. You can read that wherever you read blogs. Inklay is in the IO Bay. While you are there, please take a look at the action items. We are not free until we are all free. You would not be watching this if you didn't know that. As always, the only way out is through. Sending you so much love.